what triggers an audit? What causes the IRS to start an audit?
First, I think if I were listening, I'd say, well, what are the chances of an audit? And it's very rare. So if you go on to the web and you just type in Internal Revenue Service statistics, you'll get a link and it has historical data on audit risk. And it goes and breaks it down by year. It breaks it down by categories, such as if you're a partnership or a corporation or individuals. And then it breaks it down even further. If you're an individual, it segments it by your income level. And so if you look at your income level, you could sort of see directly exactly what your percentage of audit is. And it's very low. It's, I think, maybe under 2% risk for most individual levels of income. So of course, the higher your income goes, the higher your risk. But overall, the risk of audit for an individual is very low. That's just the statistics. So that should be comforting to a lot of people because an audit is very, very intrusive and very stressful. Yes.
Sure.
So back to the question of, well, what causes an audit? There could be various factors. The main one being what's called a discriminant function score, what's called a DIF score. And there are various elements, variables that go into this DIF score that would prompt an audit. I don't know what goes into the DIF score. That's something that's published by the IRS. It's a random number, and based on certain criteria, the DIF score will pop out certain individuals or entities that will then be selected for audit. And so that's one. It's just a variable function. Now, separately, there could be a manual survey of returns. When I worked for a certain division called the Global High Wealth Division, it focused on very high wealth individuals. They would actually pull certain individual returns from that population of very high wealth individuals, and they will just survey the returns, physically look at returns and say, well, let's look at this and this. If they saw certain things from their survey of returns that piqued their interest, they may then manually select and say, okay, based on our survey, we're going to pull these returns and they're going to be subject to audit.
Okay.
So there's the manual level. Then there's whistleblower. So if someone says, I have information, I personally know that this person or this entity has these things that I know that they're doing that's contrary to law. They would then write a summary up and then send that to the IRS. So now the IRS doesn't have a guess as to whether a return should be audited. They have specific information. So the IRS may take action on a whistleblower submission. Or the easiest one is a discrepancy between what a taxpayer prepares and reports on a return versus what a third party reports.
Okay.
So an example could be,
you miss a 1099 or something like that.
Right. And sometimes that's innocent thing. You think you reported everything, you forgot one. Right. And it could be $700 that Wells Fargo reports on a 1099, says, Kirsten, you received this dividend or income, and you forget and you don't report. So all of a sudden the IRS has a 1099 from a third party that says, this is what Kirsten earned in 2024. But Kirsten on her return didn't report it. There's a mismatch. Right. Okay. So that could trigger what's called a correspondence audit. So that's not deep enough where it creates a huge audit. It's just a letter from the IRS saying, we see this discrepancy. Can you explain it? And then you respond, and that's the end of it. So there are various inputs that would cause an audit. But overall, despite all these sources that could trigger an audit, the percentage is very low. And right now we're in February 2025.
Right.
The listeners probably have heard and seen on the news that there is a serious downsizing of the federal government, including the IRS. Mm-hmm. So even with the historic low numbers of audits, I suspect for the next 4 years, those numbers will be even lower.
Thank you for joining us today for another episode of Absolute Trust Talk Live. If you enjoyed listening in, then don't forget to subscribe. You can find us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you may listen by searching Absolute Trust Talk. While you're there, we would also love for you to leave us a review. And then why not share your favorite episodes with family, friends, or colleagues too? You can find all of our shows and corresponding show notes by visiting absolutetrustcounsel.com. You'll also find a variety of other free resources, including our ebooks, videos, blogs, presentations, and more. If you need help with your estate planning or administration, we also offer a free discovery call to help get the process started. You can find more information on booking your session by visiting absolutetrustcounsel.com/scheduling. Don't forget to keep an eye out for our next live episode. If you join us for the broadcast, you can submit questions during the show. But if not, don't worry. You can always get in touch with us by sending a quick message to info@absolutetrustcounsel.com. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you soon.